Thank you so very much. Nagma, whatever you say about Geet always feels inadequate, particularly for someone like me who's known him for over 10 years. I met him first when in a meeting where he wasn't there. There were some young people from the Olympic Gold Quest. An amazing guy called Viren Rasquina, who's the CEO. He came to see us in 2010 to talk about sport in India and to support something that at that time seemed so revolutionary, which is really to work deep in the Indian sport ecosystem. And when I heard the people behind the organization, I had no hesitation in saying that we're on. And we, as Edelgive, we've been one of the earliest supporters of the Olympic Gold Quest, which is now known as OGQ. I'd like Geet, this is more like a freewheeling conversation between friends. So please excuse us if we, kind of meander a bit. But Geet, what is your story? Born in Delhi, grew up mostly and live in Ahmedabad. An MBA, I think.
Yeah, I was.
And then billiards and then sports ecosystem. So what's your story like?
So yeah, like you said, I was born in Delhi in the year 1961, 62 and a half moons away. And my father was an air traffic controller at the international airport here, and he got transferred to Ahmedabad. And when I was 7 years old, 1968, and I remember for a child getting uprooted, whatever 7 years of your life you get uprooted from your home and what you know, and how much I cried for 3, 4, 5 days nonstop when I landed in Ahmedabad. But Ahmedabad was very, very good for me. That's where my dad got a membership of a club. That's where I saw a swimming pool. I started swimming, and then I started playing badminton and table tennis, and then I saw the billiard table. And at the age of 12 or 13, I started playing billiards. Um Went on to play a lot. I played for 40 years. And then, um, and then even before I stopped playing, I got a chance to represent India at the Asian Games. So in 1998, for the first time, billiards got included as a medal sport in the Asian Games. And tab tak till then, I used to go and play professionals. It was a professional sport, individual sport. You go out, you win, you make some prize money, come back home, but you always played for the country. I always had the India flag on my waistcoat, but you were never part of the Indian contingent. So pehli bar in 98, I went to Bangkok, Thailand for the Asian Games in a Air India flight with 200 other athletes, hockey players and tennis players and athletics and what have you. And it was a fantastic feeling. And I was by that time a 4 or 5 times world champion, and I was expected to win the gold medal for the country. So it was a very nice feeling. But when I landed at the Asian Games village, I suddenly saw all the other athletes, all the other sports persons, except for maybe Leander Pace and Mahesh Bhupati, and a couple of other players, individual players, very, very low key. And it was clear. And as I spent 2 weeks in the village in Bangkok, it was very clear that our athletes were not well prepared, and they knew that they were not going to be in the top 10 in the leaderboard. Uh, and I came back a little. I suddenly realized that Indian sport was not in very good hands in terms of the whole culture. Was the officials were important. So to give you an example, हमारा team contingent Asian Games में was about 190 or 200 athletes, and there were 450 officials who accompanied us. Huh? And the officials were living in fancy accommodation, and the athletes were put in dorms and all that. So it's just there you can make out how important the athlete was and how important the official was. That was my first understanding of the dynamics and the politics of sport. And we won some 8 gold medals and few silver medals, but we were way down in the rankings in the overall leaderboard. And we were just not we were just not trained. The athletes knew we were not going to win. Why? Because we were not trained. We didn't have equipment. And I spoke to a lot of athletes, and we came back. We won the billiards gold and a silver medal, the first ever one. And we came back, and in 2000, so in the year 2000, the Sydney Olympics happened. And I was part of a dinner hosted for the Indian contingent. And again, the Malaysia, Karnam Maleshwari won a bronze medal in weightlifting in 2000. And again, we were having this fancy dinner in a boat. Again, 230 officials and 102 athletes. Officials having fun, having a lot of whiskey and beer, and the athletes, which are very sad. And I came back from the I came back on the flight from Sydney, I remember. I said, and I was in a position where, I could speak out, and I spoke a lot. I wrote a lot. I used to write for the Hindu and the Sports Star. And I wrote about this whole situation. For 2 years, I wrote from 98 till 2000. And, but kuch hota nahi hai, and little noises are made, and then everything is back to normal. So on the flight back from Sydney, I said, can I do something where we need to make a difference? Because clearly in 1 billion people, we have the talent. But if you're not trained, if you don't have the shoes, if a runner doesn't have shoes to run, how is she going to win? So can I do something? And that's when the idea for this foundation for promotion of sports and games, as our foundation is called, or Olympic Gold Quest, OGQ, that it was born on that flight. That idea was born. And I came back. I went straight to Bangalore. I met Prakash Padukone. I said, Prakash, we need to do something. And he also had by then understood what was needed for Indian sport, that there were no trainers, there was no equipment, and basically there was no dignity. There was no dignity for the athlete. And we set up the foundation. In 2001, we set it up. And then for 6 long years, I went door to door trying to raise money. And for 6 years, I got a anda, zero. And but I just kept on and on and on and on. I must have visited 400-500 people, companies, and nothing. And then suddenly in 2007, I was sitting in front of one of our board members now, and I tell this story. And there's a message and a lesson in the story, Vidya. The lesson is this: that don't judge a book by its cover. So here I was sitting with somebody, told me, go and meet that guy. He's very much into sport. He loves sport. He'll give you something. And I went there, and here was this guy. He was the vice chairman of DSP Merrill Lynch. And I walked into his cabin, and there was a cricket match happening on a TV. And he was watching, watching very intently. And then he saw me. He said, come, come, come. And I explained the whole story to him, and why we needed a foundation to support our athletes, at least our athletes who go for the Olympics and who have a chance to win an Olympic medal for India. And he said, ha, ha, ha. And then he'd go back to watching the TV. Yeah, 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 yeah. Then he'd go back. And I said, one more, 501st guy gone. So after 5 minutes, I just got up. I said, Chitin bhai, thank you for your time, but clearly the match is more important. So I'll go now. And he just, he zoned in, and he said, no, 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 no. He said, between all this, I've been listening. What do you want? I said, we want money, to start the foundation. He said, have you got an athlete? I said, yes, there is an athlete called Gagan Narang. He is going to go to the Beijing Olympics. This was 2006 or 7. And he said, done. And he just wrote a check of 25 lakhs in those days. So never judge a book by its cover, And also I realized that don't give up. Don't give up. 6 years, nothing happened, doesn't mean nothing's going to happen on the 7th year. So you have to press on. And I think that was my greatest learning, that just keep plugging away. An idea sometimes the time is not right. Sometimes the people you meet are not right. But sometimes you meet the right person. The idea has got the whole socio-economic situation changes. And then suddenly that idea catches fruit, and then it flourishes. So that was the story. I think the whole story of my playing billiards and winning world titles was really so that I could start OGQ. Yeah.
So I remember Doordarshan and the black and white and Geet in his penguin coat and the the bow tie and playing this amazing game of what it seemed like gentleman's game, and being remarkably impressed. And I'm sure many women of my generation just fell in love with you, Geet. How many? See that? See that?
Was यार ऐसे इंसल्ट बुलाते और फिर इंसल्ट कर देते.
But I think you were 21 when you first.
24.
No, but
24.
in 1982, you won your first
Yes.
major English billiards
Yeah,
event.
that was I was 21.
That was really young, right? So, was that what? I mean, what was it like? How heady was it? And how much of it helped you write success versus joy?
So 21 at that time was very young because at that time there was a player called Michael Ferreira who just won his third world title, and he was exactly twice my age. He was about 43 or something like that, and uh, you know, at 21 you suddenly beat a three-time world champion in a national championship, and suddenly there's a lot of media. It's very heady. It's you kind of start uh, you kind of get swayed by all the things that come with media and people wanting your time and stuff. But for me, I give this example, so even before 21, I'll give you a small story about my dad, and he was a very wise man, and this so and I think parenting, and I'm digressing a bit with you. Parenting sometimes is extremely important to uh, keep children grounded. So even before 21, which was the first national senior title that I won as a junior, defeating a three-time world champion, in 1976 I went for my first ever junior national billiard championship. Okay, I was 15 years old, almost never been out of Ahmedabad, and there I took a train to Calcutta and Jamshedpur, sorry, and I came back with, I won that junior national, the first ever junior national billiard title, and it was a big trophy. Okay, it was a silver trophy, itna bada tha, so big, and full silver. And I took the train back. It was a 38, 40-hour journey on the train. I landed at the station, and my father had come to pick me up. He was an air traffic controller. He had a Lambretta scooter, and he came to pick me up. So he was a man of very few words. He came, he just hugged me, and shabash, and that's it. And then we get onto the scooter. So I'm behind, holding my bag behind. My billiard cue is in front of the Lambretta, and this big trophy in between my dad and me. And anyway, we landed up home, a 20-minute drive from the station. And of course, my mom opened the door, and my mother was like, proper Punjabi lady. And she did tikka, and she said, "Bacha kya khayega? Halwa banao, and this and that." And bacha aaya wapis jeet ke. And she was really laying it thick for me, like everything, whatever I wanted was being given. And half an hour, my dad was sitting on the side. So, आधा घंटा 40 minute हो गया, and then I had my fill, and mom with all her kisses and all her hugs, and beta tu bahut badhiya, and aarti and all being taken out, which is bizarre. But he was sitting on the side. All that finished, I had a good meal, and then just quietly, my dad just said, "Beta, यार मेरा जूता पॉलिश कर दे." And the thing is, we used to polish shoes together. Me polishing my school shoes and he polishing his work shoes. It was like, it wasn't uncommon. So it was the most natural thing for me to I look back now, and every time from the age of 15 till the age of 18, every time I came back with a big trophy, he would say, "बेटा जूता पॉलिश कर दे," और he'd say, "बेटा स्कूटर का कार्बोरेटर निकाल के उसको साफ कर दे." I mean, he had taught us how to do that. Or he would say, मेरे लिए यार वो लेके आजा कुछ पान लेके आजा यार उधर से. So I'd get on my cycle and go. But that was, I think, his way of just, he could see perhaps that when you come back with a big silver trophy as a kid, we'll all get carried away. Yeah. So he could perhaps see that, and he kind of arrested it with these kind of menial tasks. So I always say, when you're feeling damn damn good about yourself, and if you're feeling that you're really on a high, just go to your room, take out your shoes, and start polishing them. Yeah. Huh?
Now, I think for those, the reason I was leading this into success versus joy is because I think we read a lot of autobiographies of very famous and highly successful people, but one of the most grounded books, that has been written by a sports person has been Success versus Joy, which is, you know, not just to be in the headiness of success, but what is really joy? What is personal fulfillment? And when did you write that, and why did you write that?
So yes, Success versus Joy. It came out in 2004, and so the idea for the book was not mine. It was a guy called Sunil Agrawal, who was a IIM IIT IIM guy, and he used to be obsessed with billiards, and used started following me wherever I was playing. He would come, and he got a table at home. He said, I'll also become IIT IIM hai to billiard bhi khel sakunga. So he got a table at home. So he got a table at home, and he started practicing. And he would come to me and say, Mirko, what do I do? What do I practice? And I tell him. And he tried his level best, but he never won even a club tournament. Yeah. So basically, but we became good friends, and he loved the game. And then in 2003 or 4, he reached out to me. He said, Yaar, Geet, maine to 20 saal nikal diye trying to crack this game and trying to win. Every time I go for a club championship, he said, my mind collapses. I don't know what, I get nervous, even though I can play. So he said, I want to figure out what makes you tick. So it was he who structured a list of questions. We went off to a small little place in Eder, and we spent 7 days there. So first he told me, "Chalo jate hain Maldives and all that. अपने book लिखेंगे." I said, "Yeah, Maldives and all में book नहीं, हम swimming करेंगे अपने." So we went to this small little place at a small little house there, and we 7 days, no telephone, no mobile, kuch nahi. And he just asked me questions. I kept, he took me back to even I think 4 or 5 years of my age, whatever I could recollect, and he took me to my whole story, and he encapsulated that entire story into this book, and kept asking me about success and success and success. And I think then finally the gist of the book is, and my own understanding, by 2004, I was what, 43 years old. By 2004, I realized, that success is it's a very social concept. And unfortunately, we keep constantly, the minute our child is born, we are saying, tu first aaja. हाँ तो उसमें मैथ में क्यों नहीं फर्स्ट आया, देन रेस में क्यों नहीं फर्स्ट आया, then everywhere you have to be tallest, even taller में there's a competition. So everywhere there is this thing of success, success, success. And society is thrusting this word success without understanding what it is down our throats when we are growing up. And really, success is nothing. It's not fame. It is not becoming number one in billiards, or number one in being the number one NGO in the world, or it's not about money. It's not about power. It's just about doing a job well. So that is the filtration of that entire book. Says success is a job done well. And I give an example. There is a Mali, okay? Maybe there's a garden outside here. There's a gardener. You think that gardener is not successful? If you go to a beautiful garden with lovely flowers, anything a Mali touches, it flourishes. A gardener can be successful. Just because you don't know him does not mean he's not successful. Just because he doesn't have money doesn't mean he's not successful. He's successful because he's a fantastic gardener. Anything he touches it just blooms. So and the I think we were talking earlier during lunch, this thing about obsession to follow your joy. We all have talents, and some people have a talent for empathy, and I think many of you have come up with NGOs. The lady there, Renuji, with her female rights, and then so many of you have the talent for empathy, and that empathy to kind of make it work. I mean, those are talents that will come, and it leads to it leads to it leads to joy. Finally, you have to follow your joy. For me as a sports person, the joy was, you hit the ball perfectly, the cue goes straight, and it's very easy for a cue to go straight, but it takes 30 years of constant deep diving, going into massive detailing. So, to give you an example, you see some, I hold my cue like this. Let's forget billiards. आपने सब क्रिकेट देखी होगी. विराट कोहली जी 100 मार रहे हैं तो वो बैट को पकड़ रहे हैं. He's got a grip on his bat. Now, do you realize that upon, for us it's a grip on the bat, but the detailing of the grip and how much pressure this finger has on the handle of the bat, how much pressure this finger has, where is the thumb placed on the grip, all these detailings determine how effective the final shot is, how effective the timing of the ball is, whether it's going to be a six or it's going to get caught at mid off or whatever. So the detailing, to go deep, deep, deep into a subject, and that detailing will, it is finally it's a junoon. It's a junoon to keep going after that joy. That something, it gives you something from inside. You feel that, this is what I'm born for. And so I think the gist of the book is just that follow your joy. Yeah. And the joy could be sport, it could be art, it could be, women's rights, it could be child, it could be justice, it could be, finding a collaboration for all the NGOs. I mean, there's so many joys in the world, but follow your joy. You have to get the joy and follow it, and then go very, very deep in it. Success is just when you do that job damn well. And if you follow joy, you will do a job damn well.
So, on the outside, it looks, you hear Arjuna, you hear Bharat Khel Ratna, you hear Padma Shri. But no life is without its, cliffs and troughs. You speak about I've heard you speak about your injury and what that injury did for some years, and what it did later. I'd really love for you to tell us the story of that.
So it was not an injury. It was actually more a collapse of technique. So so I'll and so the year was 1989. By the year 1989, I had won 85, 87. I had won 2 world titles. I had made a world record break in snooker. I had won 4 national titles, and I was playing really, really well. Okay, 85, I won my first world title. वो time पे world championships were held every 2 years. 87 again I won the world title, and in 89 in the nationals I made a 147 break in snooker. So here's this young kid who's worked, he's practiced, he's got this joy, he's got janoon, but I was a product of my own talent and product of obsession. I got no coaching, no formal coaching, and I used to play with a technique which was unorthodox. Unorthodox matlab it was actually क्या मैं 4 गलत चीजें कर रहा था, but each गलत, every fault of mine was compensated by another fault. And somehow the cue went straight. See, billiards mein it's very simple. The cue hits the ball, the cue must go, it's a precision sport. It must go absolutely straight and hit the ball where you want it to. Now, for that to happen, you have to do this, and you have to have a bridge, and you have to twist your body, and you have to have a grip, how much pressure on the grip. So ये सब मैं सब गलत कर रहा था. Okay, amazing ना, I won 2 world titles with it. So if somebody tells you ना कि तुम सब गलत कर रहे हो, you say कि ठीक है, ठीक चल रहा है ना. But that's not the real story. The real story is I was doing this one fault compensating for another fault, and it was a very poor technique. But I managed to play well. But I was not playing consistently because कुछ copybook technique नहीं था, reference नहीं था मेरे पास. So in 89, suddenly my game dropped. You know, I in billiards you make a break of 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. If you make a break of 500, you're you're very, very good at a world class level. You make a break of 100, you're a good state level player, and you can, play in the nationals. So I could not even make a break of hundreds, and this, my form declined almost overnight. When I say almost overnight, within 1 month my game started deteriorating, and I was in completely gone. Here's a two-time world champion. I went for my third world title. I lost in the first round. Uh, I wouldn't have qualified, but I got a direct entry because I was the defending world champion. But 89 to 92, within 3 months, I realized that there's something dramatically wrong. And till that time, I never took feedback. 89 तक जब सब कुछ इतना बढ़िया चल रहा है, who cares? And a couple of people came to me also, very senior people. बेटा तेरा ये ना ये हाथ थोड़ा ऐसे है, ऐसे कर देना. ऐसे क्या अंकल, वर्ल्ड चैंपियन मैंने अभी जीता हूँ. So there were people, but it didn't really, I mean, things were going so well. So no feedback. And then within 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and I started playing longer and harder, but with no effect. And then I said, and I think that after 6 months was the thing. I said, I think I need feedback. I think I need to go to somebody. And by then I had realized that technique was my weak link. So I went to people who I knew were very good with technique. I asked them. And so I remember going to Steve Davis. He was a 6-time world champion in snooker in England. I was playing the professional snooker circuit in England, losing every day. Every day I would wake up in the morning, I'd go and I'd lose a match here. And then I went to him. He was also playing. I said, Steve, I'm struggling. I used to make 100. I made a world record break. I can't put a ball in the pocket. And he said, yeah, come, why don't you? So he saw me play. And he just said 4 words. He said, your technique is rubbish. Oh, English accent mein bola, rubbish. And he gave me a few tips. I started putting those tips into exercise. The most frustrating part of changing my technique was to de-learn 14 years of muscle memory. तो 14 साल जब आप खेल रहे हो and you keeping on doing it in a particular way, your muscles develop. Actually, muscle develops. And I had to de-learn very, very strong muscle memory and then relearn. It was like a beginner. So from suddenly a 2-time world champion, I had to come back to the ground and suddenly start as a beginner. And I'd go to the club as a beginner and slowly started building my technique. It took me 3 years. And those 3 years I started playing. There were times when I would play for 18 hours a day. 18 hours. I know what I'm saying. 18 hours. Where I used to sleep and eat. In 6 hours, I would do everything else. And I remember if ever I was in a state of almost on the borderline of a mental illness, if you could call it that, it was at that, towards the end of that time, because I was playing 18 hours a day. I was not listening to anybody. I was not talking socially. I had become awkward. I was not going for anybody's wedding, no friends, family. I was just I used to come home and sleep. I would get up. I woke up once at 2 in the morning, and for us, there's a technique. So there's a mirror, and I would to see that my technique is going right, I would bend in front of the mirror and I'd see, okay, is this technique, should I try it out tomorrow morning? And Kiran, my wife, we were married by then, and she said, Geetu, what's going wrong? Every night you're getting up and you're, she said, you're like a madman. You're standing in front of a mirror for 15 minutes. She said, Geetu, you'll go mad this way. And I really think I would have gone mad. But the thing was, there was only one thing that kept me going, and that was, if with a bad, horrible technique, I could play well, then if I get my technique right, what will happen? And that kept me going, and that kept me going, and kept me going. And then suddenly, after 3 years, I got a technique. I started practicing only with that technique, building my muscle memory. Another 6 months and I came back from 3.5 years of hibernation almost, played my first tournament, won that tournament, and then went on to just play the best billiards of my life, making few more world records and winning 7 more world titles. So, so, so of the 40 years, 14 years of terrible technique with refusing to take feedback, and then 30 whatever 36 years of good technique. So technique is important, but more importantly, we must listen to feedback, especially when you're flying high. Na, that's the time to listen to feedback. Yeah.
Again, polish your shoes when you're riding high. So just full disclosure, I've been serving on the board of OGQ for a very long time, I think now, or at least known OGQ for a very long time, of course. Um, and one of the things that's really, really impressed me is um, how the two founders, if I can call them that, Geet and Prakash, just keep this organization really grounded, like you are in your real life, because it's very easy to get carried away. You're working with some of the best athletes in the country. You've probably been responsible for, at least in no small measure, in their own success. Um, so, what were the kind of guiding principles, as it were, that you used? And we have these debates at the board level these days because of the temptations. All organizations have those temptations from time to time. Sometimes we get forced to be funder driven because some funder, in their own wisdom, comes and tells us we must do this, and takes you away from your primary focus. But in OGQ, I always feel that the two of you in the room just really steer us very well and don't let us get into these temptations to do things that are not good for the organization. How was your thinking at the beginning, and how does it continue to be?
So, uh, before I answer that question, just a little backdrop. I've realized that to create organizations, to do work, whatever work you're doing, you need subject matter knowledge. So, which Prakash and I had. But along with subject matter knowledge, I think you need, at a board level, at a friendship level, at a counselor advisory level, you need people who understand other parts of an organization. It could be compliance. There was a question about compliance and the fact how heartbeats start going up with FCRA. So you need a whole uh, a group of people who are not necessarily only subject matter experts, because that can be actually limiting. So just to start off with that. But right from the beginning, I remember Shitin Desai was a finance guy, and he came in, and we got another 2-3 people from the financial industry, private equity industry, who came as board members, as donors, and they started talking now about big money. And I remember long back, 13 years back, we had this discussion at a board level, which said, okay, so why don't we? Those days we used to raise 25 lakhs, which was a big amount of money. They said, what about getting somebody like a very large industrial group to give us 5 crores or 10 crores? And I remember Prakash and I instinctively and instantly said no. So somebody said, but there is somebody who's willing. I said, the problem, I said, I'd rather be an organization which is kind of, it becomes a movement where lots of people give money, but you get one donor, then you become a slave of a owner, and a slave of the donor, sorry. And anybody who gives big money will say, अरे यार इसको जरा देखना यार, दिस मेरे अंकल के चाचे के लड़के का बेटा है, उसको जरा देखो यार, हाँ ये बहुत शूटिंग बहुत अच्छी करता है. Shooting बहुत अच्छी करता है means he must be shooting in his back garden, and getting a bullseye or something. So that threat is always there, and we just, right from the beginning, we said no to that. The other thing, as we grew, as the money started coming in, we started growing. So we were very, very focused, saying we are focused. So our mission is to support those Indian athletes who have the potential to win Olympic medals for India, who has the potential to win Olympic medals for India. Now, somewhere down the line, in fact, Shitin Bhai, my first donor, he right from the beginning said, no, we must go to grassroots. We must get juniors. And at that time, with limited funds, we said no. So we've going to only focus on the top end athlete, and we stuck to that. We both, Prakash and I, refused. We said no, we have to focus, 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 focus. It's all about focus. It's very important to not get diluted. See, the thing is, once you start an NGO, you are bound to get, and my sport is theek hai, still a is it's meaningless to what you guys do. And you guys do, so many problems that come up here. Your focus is justice for a female. Then suddenly from that there will be something else that will come up, and you'll say, but that's equally important, let me do it. So I think what we understood, or what we kind of really zoned and said, we are not going to get diluted. Do one thing, do it very well. Automatically more funding started coming in, we started getting Olympic medals. And after 4, 5, 6 years of consolidating, then again Shitin bhai, no, we must do it, we must do it, every board meeting. After 6 years we said, yes, now we are ready to perhaps go to the junior level. And then we said, let's have a junior program. So it's extremely important to keep the organization very, very focused, and that someone has to take that. Otherwise, at board meetings, a lot of dilution can happen. So many ideas, and so much to do actually. And for all you guys, there is so much to do. Yeah, there is so much of pain, so much of pain points. And my only submission and my learning is, be zoned in and be focused.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that has really amazed me and gives me a lot of joy is the fact that OGQ has been both a participant in as well as a driver of the immense grassroots interest in sport. If you see our juniors program now, and if you see even the Paralympics program, I'd like you to speak about both. The number of girls and boys who come from really small town India, from extremely poor families, with a dream in their eye and the junoon that you spoke about, that has been an amazing, amazing trend. And possibly what, last 8, 10 years, maybe 15 years?
Last 8 years.
Last 8
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, the junior program and the Paralympian program is now catching steam. Finally, for the Olympic medals, the numbers will have to come. Uh, there's too much work to be done. We are a very small organization, but I must give credit. I for the longest time I kept saying, no, let's not go into the Paralympian program. Let's not go into the Paralympian program. Let's focus on just the top end. But first we did the junior program, and now we have got almost 100. So we are totally 400 athletes, 400 athletes who we support, of which 150 are juniors and almost 100 are Paralympians. And our eyes were opened up by the government of India, because they took a fantastic decision about 6 years ago. They said a Para-Olympian athlete will have the same stature for awards, for prize monies, for government grants as the able-bodied. And that was a fantastic thing. It used to not be like that. Have you ever heard of Arjuna awards and Padma Shris being given to Paralympians? Nahi tha pehle. Including when you win an Olympic medal, the able-bodied athletes were getting 1 crore, and the Paralympians are not getting. So government of India about 5 or 7 years back, they changed that, and they opened our eyes actually. So Paralympian program is something that we've adopted now, and we are doing exceptionally well. And they are the most inspirational stories that you can come across. आपने शीतल देवी का नाम सुना है? So Sheetal Devi is a 15 or 16-year-old girl. She comes from the Srinagar, Jammu Kashmir, Srinagar area. She doesn't have hands. Okay, so from here, right from the shoulder, she has no hands. And she is a world champion archer. Archer. Abhi, how does she hold the bow? How does she holds the bow with her left leg, and she pulls the arrow with some contraption which her coach has made. She pulls it and she shoots 50 meters. So holding a bow with a left leg, holding the arrow with her teeth, she shoots 50 meters and gets a bullseye. So that's the kind of inspirational value that these athletes have. And they need to be supported with coaching. They need to be supported with sports science, with blood testing, with with vitamins, with physiotherapy, and and we have to give it. If it's not being given, someone has to give it, and that's where we come in. We just give an athlete जो भी उसको चाहिए to fulfill their potential. After that, whether they win or not is another matter, but at least their potential should be fulfilled. But there are such amazing stories, like Vidya said. They come from small towns, small villages, laborers sometimes, children of laborers, manual laborers, and they come, they make it, they win Olympic medals, and they transform their lives. And along with transforming their lives, they transform their family's life, but most importantly, they provide inspirational value for a whole generation of others. Yeah. So it's fantastic. You know, in Manipur, Nagaland, there was a panelist before this, he was talking. Uh, Mary Com, you all heard of her. Uh, Today, there are academies in the Northeast, boxing academies, and there are more applicants to the academies than there are academies. So there are more than 3, 4, 5, 6,000 girls wanting to get into academies, where Mary Com's parents used to actually, say, "Kya kar rahi ho? What are you doing?" So huge inspirational value, very, very big inspiration.
And I think one of the things that I see a parallel between Edelgave and OGQ is we always say at Edelgave that we keep our grantee at the center of the work. And that's what I've seen at OGQ. You keep the athlete at the center of your work. Everything you do, you exist for that athlete. And I think it's, a lot of people may not know what that means. So it'll be nice to give any one example of what you and Viren and the whole team do for an athlete.
So yeah, like it's we must never forget that we, like Vidya said, that sanstha, we exist not for ourselves. We don't exist for our egos. We don't exist for the awards that we may or may not get. We don't exist for the funding. We exist for the cause, and the cause is to make the athlete fulfill their potential, whatever it takes. So let's take the case of Mary Com. Now that we are at Mary Com, now Mary Com is a 5-time world boxing champion. Now she fights in the 49-kilogram weight category. I'm talking now of 2009, and the Olympic medal has been announced for a 52-kilogram weight category. Now 3 kilos she has to put on weight. Many people will say that's the easiest thing to do. But you have to put on the weight in the right manner. So at that point in time, she needed the best nutritionist in the world. She needed the best physical trainer in the world. She needed the best mental trainer in the world. And all that was provided by OGQ. But more importantly, she is going up a weight category. She required a coach who was not just her regular coach. She required a coach who understood what it meant to go up a weight category. It's very hard. अपने को लगता है 3 किलो, but वो है बेचारी 49 kilos की. 3 kilos is almost 10% weight. It's very, very hard to go up a weight category and yet be effective. So the OGQ team, so I keep saying, what does OGQ do? We provide intelligence. What does government do? They provide infrastructure. They provide the massive funding for all kinds of things. But the intelligence to find a coach, and my team went through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of coaches across the world. They interviewed many. They finally found a coach in Liverpool, a guy called Atkins, Charles Atkins. And and they found him in Liverpool. He had taken 5 Thai boxers up a weight category and made them world champions. They called him, he agreed. We had a training camp along with Mary Com. She loved him. She trained with him for a year and a half before going to the London Olympics. And of course, the rest is history. So Yeah. So it's just the whole team. So Mary Kom, PV Sindhu, all our athletes, including our Paralympians and our juniors, you ask them just one question. आपको जब इंजरी होती है, so you know, मीराबाई चानू, you heard मीराबाई चानू's name. आपको जब इंजरी होती है तो आप फोन किसको पहले करते हो? एंड दे वोंट से मम्मी को, पापा को, नो, दे विल से हम यतिन को फोन करते हैं ओजीक्यू में, because that is the kind of the support system that they provide. They are living for the athlete. Their world stops if an athlete calls up. The world stops. Yatin has taken a call even during his wedding. Even during his wedding, he has said, no, I have to take this call. This is so that is the kind of the support that is given.
So I think the one thing that emerged, and I'm not sure how planned it was, and the earlier panelists also spoke about, I think Renu spoke about, working with the system. Working with the system, working to change the system. And I think what OGQ has perhaps accidentally gotten into, I don't know how much of it was by design, to really work to change as well as to work with the sports ecosystem. Would you agree?
Completely agree. And she's absolutely right. Finally, NGO basically is non-government organizations, but I think we have to learn that if we can work with government, I think the change that we can and the impact that we can make will definitely be will be that much greater. Uh, so it just so happened that the processes and protocols that were being followed by us, we happened to get some fantastic people in the Sports Authority of India, in the Sports Ministry, fantastic officers who kind of understood this, and who actually, because earlier I started OGQ, or Prakash and I started OGQ because I was at loggerheads with the officers in the system. And I used to not abuse them, but I used to actually write against them. And, they were really, really, what you call, not efficient. And here you have officers who understood what we were doing, and they, gave us a extending hand. So finally, that training program of Mary Kom, those 1 year of training that she did before the Olympics, was actually a shake hand between the Sports Authority of India and OGQ, where they provided all the infrastructure, and we provided the coach, because there was some law in the government that they can't pay a coach more than 50 lakhs or 60 lakhs a year at the time, and this guy's fees was 75 lakhs. So we were paying for the coach, they were paying for the airfare, and they were paying for the infrastructure. So you have to work together. So 1 plus 1 is always 11. It's never 2. So if you can work together and use the whole machinery and the funds which a government can have, and if you can, with your intent and with your work, show a government that this can be done, I think there are people, and we have to, we have to be positive about everything. Of course, there are stories, there are pathetic stories of how people don't work, but there are equally fabulous stories of how one man from government or the corporation has made a difference. I know how Surat in Gujarat changed because of one Mr. Rao, who came as from a plague-ridden city, it became one of the cleanest city. So we have to find these people. That job of finding those people also is one of our jobs. Let's find those people, no, and kind of work with them.
So I'm going to close because we can go on and on, as most of you have realized. But I'd really like you to talk about Kiran and all the amazing work she's done, and most likely the amazing support she has given you and the support that you've given her. I'd love for you to speak about that.
Kiran is my wife. Huh? She calls me on a stage and says, "Now speak about your wife." No, but rightfully so, because Kiran is actually an exceptional woman. She's a graphic designer. She did her graphic design from NID, very prestigious school of design in Ahmedabad. And we were married in 86. Uh, 91, our son was born. And from 86 to 91, she was doing her graphic work from home. And the minute our son was born, she said, I'm going to now not have an office. She was thinking of having an office. She said, I'm going to operate from home. But during those days of both from 86 onwards until the day I stopped playing, and I used to travel a lot, and I was never there. I was not there when my son was born, incidentally, because I was playing a world championship. But till date, I have never heard the sentence "don't go." So I have a tournament. She has never said "don't go," or she has never said "come back." Nothing. It could be a real crisis, but she's handled it, and she's just allowed me to. She's been fantastic support for me in that sense. But anyway, coming back to Kiran, 91, our son is born. By the year 95, he goes to school. And 4-year-old boy, 3 or 4-year-old boy, कौन से school में डालेंगे? चलो, I went to a school. I said, उसमें डालेंगे. Now, school admission हो गया, and I went off for a tournament somewhere, wherever I was playing. And a month into the school, Kiran goes to the school, the kindergarten. She goes to the teacher, and this young, loving mother wanting to know how her son is doing. And she says, Miss whatever, how is my son Rag doing? Please tell me about him. And the teacher looked very kind of disinterested and said, Uska roll number kya hai? And she pulled him out of school. She just took him out of school and got him back. She called me up. She said, I have taken Rag out of school. I said, okay. And now she said, no, nothing. She said, I'll do a better job. And knowing her, I knew she'd do a better job. But she got involved in education with that one interaction, and of course a few kind of chats or few incidents that must have happened with Rag. But that one defining incident, she got completely into education, and she went traveled all over India, seeing all the different schools models. She traveled to Italy and saw a school called Reggio Emilia. She traveled to the US. After 2 years of travel, she came back. And just at the time, there was a school called Eklavya, which was 3 IIT IIM graduates. They had started this school in Ahmedabad. She put Rag there. By that time, he was in grade 2, I think, or 3. And she was so involved that Venkat, who had one of the co-founders of that school, he actually invited her, said, you become the principal of this school. And she happily agreed. She became the principal of the junior school because she was doing all kinds of workshops and interacting with the kids more through projects and stuff like that, whatever. And anyway, the whole team left that school within by 2000 and by 2001, and they all did different things. Kiran started at my we were just building a home, and we were about to move in, and before we moved in, Kiran moved in with Riverside, name of a school. And she started her school there with 21 kids, including our daughter, who was born 4 years after Rag. तो घर चला गया, स्कूल आ गया. And but I think it is that same story of joy, that she was lost, and she says today her school, just 2 months back,
How many have heard of Riverside and all?
Riverside,
Yes.
okay, oh wow, lots of people. So it's this, she's just got, there's an independent rating agency out of London who has given her the world's most innovative school award 2 months back. So she's quite incredible. In fact, आज मैं इधर बोल रहा हूँ, कल वो कोई conference में बोल रही है गुड़गांव में. And so she's just followed her joy, and she went so deep into education. And she keeps saying, she says, my greatest strength was that when I started the school, I came from a background with no education. So she said, I could constantly keep asking questions, which people, when you're trained in education, you kind of get trained in a particular way of thinking. She said, I could just challenge anything. And because it was our school, it was self-financed and self-funded. She said I could do what I wanted. She made a few mistakes, I'm sure, but like we put the athlete at the center, she keeps saying the child at the center. So a lot of research, a lot of reading, a lot of things about child psychology. So she keeps saying the schools, every decision, almost every decision in a school is taken not keeping the child at the center, but keeping the other stakeholders in the center. Oh, ट्रस्टी क्या बोलेगा, टीचर को, टीचर, it's advantages for the teacher to come at 7:30, so you make the school timing 7:30. The research and all kinds of brain science suggests that when a child becomes 13 or 14, there's a a melatonin kind of gets secreted a little less or a little later in the night, so they have difficulty in waking up in the morning. So please put your school timings to about 9:30, but it'll never happen because, well, the teachers don't agree to it, or the trustee doesn't agree to it, or whatever, or the buses can't make it on time, whatever. So anyway, just that, but that is Kiran, and I'm very proud of her. So now I am the support behind. So I've stopped playing. So anytime that she needs me for anything, I'm there, and I never tell her don't go, and I never tell her come back.
Thank you so much, Geet. It's been amazing. I know there will be some questions later on how does an athlete post his active life remain as fit as you, but we're not going to go there because that will be another. So thank you so much, and ladies and gentlemen, Geet Sethi.
Thank you.